Half a day, I'm Luella Lucino from the Pacific News Center, and you're watching Coffee with the Candidates. I'm with Senator Mary Torres, who's here with us to share her perspective on not just the legislature, but her campaign this year as for the primary elections. How are you today, Senator Mary?
Doing well. We've been in budget hearings, so it's a little bit exhausting right now.
So
But otherwise, thank you.
how is the budget hearing so far?
It's going a little slower than I'm accustomed to, but I suppose that's the nature because people are particularly sensitive with the uncertainties in this pandemic climate.
Yeah. So you have been as you have been you're known as a senator who goes for accountability and transparency, and you're also you don't play party lines. So what do you think should for this year? I mean, talking about the budget, what should the legislature prioritize, given that we are in a fiscal crisis, or yeah, sort of fiscal crisis because of the pandemic?
Well, because of the pandemic situation, of course, public health is the most obvious, not only because of the pandemic situation, but because many people are unemployed and don't have access to health care. So healthcare is paramount right now. But, everything too is tied in with healthcare, public safety, even the judicial system, I believe, has to be all the things that are the reciprocal, that where the issues with pandemic would reciprocate on them, I think would be the ones that we have to prioritize. But I think fundamentally, everything begins with health. I mean, that is the dividing factor between your uh, your economic stability, ability to work. Um, and so clearly public health has to be the priority this coming budget.
I know this is something that is I don't know, like an off a question that is often asked to to all of the candidates, but um, any particular reason why you are running for re-election this year?
I think that we need to maintain some level of um, experience in the legislature. We know what happens when there is a massive turnover. Institutional knowledge is, first of all, important in any situation. But I think, for me, it's what I always offer is not only a dedication to public service, but there has to be a degree of statesmanship and decorum in any legislature. And I believe that that's what I've always brought, that open-mindedness, the fairness, always playing along bipartisan lines, because in the end, you can look for people who you believe carry your ideals, but you also need the people that are so well-rounded, like myself, who can see the bigger picture and not carry special interest. And I think that that's why, I believe that I have something to lend, and that's all it is. What can I offer? What can I give? And that's what I pledge to the people all the time. It's just, what can I do to help? And I believe that I have been, that steady, fair voice in the legislature for not only certain interests, but the voice of those that are most vulnerable. You have to look at those that don't have voices. The people that tend to be overlooked. They're the ones that I tend to look for as a senator. And that's why I'm continuing to stay in.
So if elected the next during the next legislative cycle, any particular bills or any priorities that you'd like to push for the
Well,
next?
just continuing on your question previously about priorities with public health, one thing that I did in the past legislature was I expanded the licensure for nurses, allowing nurses with advanced degrees to practice to the full extent of their licensure. And that opened up healthcare tremendously for Guam, allowing the advanced nurse practitioners to have full practice authority. But I think what we need to do too is address the nursing shortage. And what I'd like to do is carry forward, if it doesn't happen this year, is carry forward that bill that I introduced on nurse practice licensure, where if you're part of a compact in the United States, it eases the ability for people that are licensed in those states that have the compact to become licensed on Guam. Because we have many nurses, for example, who are military nurses that wouldn't want to go through the hassle and the expense of getting licensed in Guam. The bill that I have for expanding the nurse licensure compact would enable a lot of those nurses to come on board. But I think healthcare, bringing on more people to provide healthcare for our residents is very important. And I want to continue to chase down those avenues for the community.
And if you were to chair a committee, for example, like what would it be and why?
Well, you have to remember too that I've had a lot of government experience. I was the vice manager at the Visitors Bureau. I was also the general manager of the Guam Airport Authority and the general manager of the Port Authority of Guam. So I've had a lot of experience in those transportation agencies as well as the tourism industry. And all three, of course, drive the economy of Guam. So I think that if, with my experience in those and my knowledge, my professional knowledge of those three agencies, I think that I would be very well suited to that. And I'm also very interested in the Rules Committee too. And I think that if I were given the chance, that would be a committee as well that I think that I could be very instrumental in helping.
And as going back to tourism, I guess. So how do you think should we? I mean, for Guam, how do we boost or I guess revive the tourism industry?
A lot depends, of course, on our source markets and being able to establish protocols on Guam that will allow them to come back here without fear, because the tourism industry, as we know, is very fickle. There are incidences that will just cause tourists to stop traveling. And we've seen that with all sorts of situations with SARS, with the wars, with the Gulf Wars, for example. But I think, though, that what the focus right now on improving the product of Guam and the essence of Guam and what would make us a marketable destination, a more favorable destination in the future is really where we want to go. When I was at the Guam Visitors Bureau, one of the projects that I worked with when Jerry Perez was our general manager and I was the deputy was the Guam Branding Initiative. That was a project that I developed with Jerry Perez, as was we developed also the first Coco International Road Race. Those were things that we started when I was a deputy. So, it establishes an identity for Guam, and that you cannot have a successful tourism destination without being a desirable destination. And with that becomes not only the amenities and the infrastructure, but really the marketing, and not only marketing, but showing the genuine Chamorro hospitality, and the Chamorro identity is really critical to attracting tourists. So we just have to build on all those things. Our land, our sea, our people, that is so critical to our tourism success in the future. And we just have to continue to hone in on those and improve upon them.
This is more of a personal question, but can you name one government leader or a former senator who has inspired you? It could be either from either party or yeah.
Well, I was inspired because I come from a political family. My father was the first elected governor of Guam, and he also worked on the Elective Governors Act to give us the right to choose our own. But my whole mentoring really and inspiration came from the oldest statesmen in Guam, the ones that really crafted the Guam government and started a lot of agencies. Like I think about my uncle Frank Perez, who started GITA, my uncle Tommy Tanaka, my own father who was a senator. Many of the old ones really inspired me and gave me that sense of duty and statesmanship. but the one senator that I really have enjoyed, to be honest, is Senator B.J. Cruz, because he was such a fiscal conservative. He was such a straight talker, but he had a heart for people, and that was one thing that really inspired me as a brand new senator, was having someone like him to look up to, who just wasn't afraid of any criticism and would just tell it straight. I think sometimes you need to do that. Just tell it straight, but always with best intentions. Not out of malice, but out of true care for people. And that's kind of how I operate as well.
Thank you, Senator. And can you summarize your plans once elected, if elected to the legislature, the next legislature?
I would like to continue to work on many of the policies that I have, which is rebuilding families. Guam is at a critical point right now where we are so vulnerable because of the economic situation. I want to continue to rebuild the families, working with a lot of the good programs that our justice system has set up, and need to be augmented with good policy in the legislature. I also want to continue to remove barriers to opportunities with people, making it easier, for example, with identification, easily getting identification. I also have worked on restoring dignity in the legislature, restoring dignity to people, dignity in the workplace, dignity in the in our healthcare provisions. I think right now what we really need are leaders that can just help people get through these trying times, not be reactionary, not take advantage of people's vulnerabilities and fears. There's a phrase that says that a frightened captain makes for a frightened crew. And I think right now we really need people that can just hold steady and help us ride out these troubling times. And I feel that, I can only offer myself, who I am, what I've done, what I know, and what I'm willing to learn. And that's the other thing too, is I have always respected people enough to hear all sides of the story and to try to figure out really what is best, not just for some, but for the greater good. Because at this point, it is about the greater good. So all policy going forward has to take everybody in mind. We're all in this together, leave no one behind, but mostly just do things, with an open and honest intention. And with the honesty also to do the work. And, that's something that I've never shied away from, doing that hard work. So I would appreciate also continued support. I've had great support from, mostly have thrived on the love of strangers, as they say. And I think that that's all that matters is, if people can understand what you stand for and what you're willing to do, and that you care about them, I think that that's really all that you can ask of people is, trust me, let me continue to maintain your trust, and let me continue to serve, because I think service is indeed a noble thing in this public arena.
Thank you, Senator Mary. And that's it for us for Coffee with the Candidates. Watch out for more interviews.